When you think of the FBI, what comes to mind? Elite agents in sharp suits chasing down mobsters, spies, and terrorists. For decades, that's been the public image, carefully crafted and sold to the world. The FBI is seen as America's top crime-fighting force, a symbol of justice and order. But behind this heroic facade lies a much more complicated and shadowy story. The truth is, the FBI has always had a dual identity. It's not just a law enforcement agency. It's also one of the most powerful and secretive domestic intelligence operations the world has ever known. This isn't just about catching bad guys. It's about a history of surveillance, political power, and a constant struggle between national security and the rights of the very citizens it has sworn to protect. Today, we're pulling back the curtain to reveal the secret history of the FBI, exploring how an agency designed to enforce the law became a force that could shape American politics and society itself, often in ways you'd never expect. To understand the FBI, you have to understand one man, Edgar Hoover. For an astonishing 48 years, Hoover wasn't just the director of the FBI. He was the FBI. He was a master of public relations, single-handedly creating the myth of the incorruptible super agent who always got his man through movies, radio shows, and comic books. He sold America on the idea of the FBI as the nation's righteous protector, waging a heroic war on crime against gangsters like John Dillinger and Al Capone. But while he was building this public image, he was secretly building something else, a shadow empire of information. Hoover's real power came from the files. He obsessively collected sensitive, often scandalous, information on anyone and everyone of importance: presidents, senators, judges, celebrities, and activists. This secret leverage made him politically untouchable. No president dared to fire him, because no one knew what Hoover knew about them. This accumulation of power wasn't just for job security, it was a weapon. And soon, he would turn that weapon against the American people themselves in one of the most infamous programs in U.S. history. This program was called COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program. On the surface, it sounded official, even necessary. But in reality, it was a secret, illegal war waged by the FBI against American citizens. Starting in the 1950s and escalating through the 60s, COINTELPRO's mission was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, or otherwise neutralize any domestic political group the FBI deemed subversive. Who were these so-called subversives? They were anti-war protesters, student activists, and most notably, leaders of the civil rights movement. The FBI's most prominent target was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hoover developed a personal obsession with King, believing he was a threat to the American way of life. The Bureau wiretapped his phones, bugged his hotel rooms, and tried to find personal indiscretions to blackmail him with. They even sent him an anonymous letter suggesting he take his own life. This wasn't law enforcement. This was a systematic abuse of power, using the full weight of a government agency to harass, intimidate, and attempt to destroy a movement fighting for basic human rights. COINTELPRO represents the darkest chapter in the FBI's history, a stark warning of what can happen when a secret agency operates without any oversight or accountability. After J. Edgar Hoover died in 1972, the floodgates opened, his fortress of secrets began to crumble, and the truth about the FBI's abuses started to come to light. A series of bombshell congressional investigations, most famously the Church Committee, exposed the shocking extent of COINTELPRO and other illegal surveillance activities. The American public was horrified to learn that their own government had been spying on them, disrupting political movements, and violating the Constitution on a massive scale. In response, Congress enacted major reforms. Strict legal guidelines, like the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, were put in place to rein in the Bureau's power. For the first time, the FBI needed a warrant to spy on Americans. The agency's focus was publicly shifted away from political intelligence and back toward traditional crime. For the next 2 decades, the FBI became known more for tackling organized crime families and complex white-collar fraud cases. It seemed like the era of the FBI as a political secret police was finally over. But then, on a clear September morning in 2001, everything changed. The September 11th attacks were a national trauma that reshaped America, and nowhere was that change more dramatic than within the FBI. The public and political pressure to prevent another attack was immense. The old model of investigating crimes after they happen was no longer seen as good enough. The FBI's mission was transformed overnight, from crime fighting to terror prevention. To achieve this, Congress passed the Patriot Act, a sweeping piece of legislation that handed the FBI and other intelligence agencies vast new powers of surveillance, many of which rolled back the very reforms put in place after the Hoover era. The wall that had been built between domestic law enforcement and foreign intelligence gathering was torn down. The FBI's intelligence division exploded in size and scope, effectively remerging its two identities. The Bureau began collecting massive amounts of data, phone records, emails, internet activity, all in the name of connecting the dots before an attack could happen. While this shift was aimed at foreign terrorists, the tools and tactics were increasingly used at home, bringing the old tensions between security and liberty roaring back to life in a new digital age. So, where does that leave the FBI today? The Bureau finds itself in a state of constant, unresolved tension. On one hand, it faces threats that are more complex and decentralized than ever before: global cybercrime syndicates, sophisticated foreign espionage, and a rise in domestic extremism. To combat these, the agency argues it needs powerful surveillance tools and the ability to act preemptively. On the other hand, the ghost of J. Edgar Hoover in COINTELPRO looms large. Every new surveillance program, every new expansion of power, raises legitimate fears about civil liberties and the potential for abuse. The core conflict that has defined the FBI for a century is still very much alive. How do you protect a country from its enemies without turning those powers against its own citizens? The secret history of the FBI isn't just a history lesson. It's a vital, ongoing case study. It teaches us that power, especially secret power, must be watched. It reminds us that the democratic safeguards that limit agencies like the FBI aren't just legal technicalities. They are the very foundation of a free society. Understanding this history is crucial for any citizen who wants to ensure that the balance between security and liberty is never lost. Thanks so much for watching. The story of the FBI is a huge and fascinating topic, and we've only scratched the surface. If you found this interesting and want to see more deep dives into complex subjects like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do unmiss our next video. We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What part of the FBI's history do you find most compelling or concerning? Let's get a conversation started. See you next time.